In part 1 of the story, Thomas, a wealthy but dissatisfied businessman, meets Olivia, a homeless woman, when she returns his lost wallet. Impressed by her honesty, he asks her to pose as his date for a corporate gala, offering her financial help in return. Olivia reluctantly agrees and plays the role convincingly, despite her discomfort in his world. At a pivotal event, Thomas's ex publicly exposes Olivia's background, leaving her humiliated. She flees, ending their arrangement. Realizing his feelings, Thomas seeks her out, apologizes, and confesses his love, promising sincerity. Hello, family, welcome to Timeless Tales. If this is your first time watching, please consider subscribing to reach out to more people who enjoy this type of stories, and if you are a returning subscriber, I really appreciate you. Your support means a lot to our community as we grow. Sit back as we dive into the full story. Thomas adjusted his tie as he stood at the doorway, waiting for Olivia to join him. He had already spent the morning convincing her to move into his mansion, a task that required more effort than he anticipated. For some reason, Olivia hesitated, as if leaving her modest apartment meant abandoning something deeper, her independence, perhaps, or the cautious life she had built after so much struggle. From the hallway, he called out, "Olivia, come on. It's just a house." Olivia stepped out of the bedroom, carrying a small suitcase. "To you, it's just a house. To me, it's the biggest leap I've ever made," she replied, half joking but with a hint of unease in her voice. Thomas smiled warmly, stepping forward to take the suitcase from her. "It's not about the house, Olivia. It's about us. I want you to feel like this is your home too." She looked up at him, searching his eyes for reassurance. "Are you sure about this? What if I don't fit in?" Thomas chuckled. "You've already fit into my life in ways no one else ever has. Let's take this one step at a time, okay?" With a deep breath, Olivia nodded. "All right, let's do it." Moving into Thomas's mansion was overwhelming at first. Olivia found herself lost in the sheer size of the place, marveling at the luxury she had only ever seen in magazines. On the first evening, as they sat on the couch in the grand living room, Olivia's nervous laughter broke the silence. "This place is like something out of a movie. Do you ever get lost in your own house?" Thomas grinned. "Once or twice. The first week I lived here, I got locked in the wine cellar for an hour." Olivia burst out laughing. "You? Locked in your own wine cellar? That's priceless." "It wasn't funny at the time," Thomas said, pretending to be offended. "I called the staff in a panic. They still tease me about it." Moments like these made Olivia feel more at ease, as if the mansion wasn't a cold, empty space but a place they were transforming into a real home together. However, not everything was smooth sailing. Isabella, Thomas's ex-girlfriend, remained an unexpected thorn in their side. One afternoon, Olivia was arranging a set of flowers in the dining room when the sound of angry voices reached her ears. She peeked out the window to see Isabella at the gate, arguing with the security guard. "I need to see Thomas," Isabella shouted, her voice carrying over the quiet courtyard. Thomas appeared moments later, walking swiftly to the gate. Olivia stayed by the window, watching the confrontation unfold. "Isabella, what are you doing here?" Thomas asked, his voice calm but firm. "You can't just shut me out," Isabella cried, desperation creeping into her tone. "You can't replace me with her." Thomas's expression darkened. "You made your choice, Isabella. We're over. I've moved on, and so should you." Isabella gripped the gate, her knuckles turning white. "You don't mean that, Thomas. I know you still care about me." "Let's get one thing straight," Thomas replied coldly. "I cared about you once, but you only cared about what I could give you. I'm not the same man you walked away from." With that, he turned and walked back toward the house, leaving Isabella stunned. Inside, Olivia stood by the staircase, her arms crossed. "She seems persistent," she said quietly when Thomas entered. Thomas sighed. She'll stop eventually. I've told the gatekeeper never to let her in again. Olivia nodded, trying to brush off the unease she felt. Well, let's hope that's the last of her. The days leading up to the wedding were filled with excitement and preparation. Thomas's parents were thrilled and spared no expense in organizing the grand event. Olivia, however, felt the weight of her new life more than ever. One evening, she sat on the edge of their bed, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Do you think I'll ever be enough for them? She asked softly. Thomas knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. You're more than enough, Olivia. You've proven that time and time again. My parents adore you, and so do I. She smiled weakly. I'm not exactly what people picture when they think of a billionaire's wife. Thomas tilted her chin up gently. That's why you're perfect. You're not here for money or status, you're here because we found something real. Never doubt that. Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. Thank you, Thomas. Finally, the day of the wedding arrived. Guests flooded into the grand venue, the air buzzing with excitement. Olivia walked down the aisle in a stunning white gown, her heart pounding in her chest. When the pastor reached the familiar question, does anyone object to this union, the room held its breath. The silence shattered as a voice rang out from the crowd. I do. All eyes turned to see Isabella standing, her face flushed with anger and determination. Gasps rippled through the room. Olivia froze, her hand trembling in Thomas's grasp. You can't marry her. Isabella shouted, walking toward the altar. Thomas, we never officially broke up. I'm still your girlfriend. Thomas's parents exchanged confused glances, their smiles fading. Thomas stepped forward, his jaw clenched. That's enough, Isabella, he said, his voice firm. No, it's not, she insisted. You loved me once, Thomas. Don't pretend like she's better for you than I am. Olivia's heart ached, but she held her ground, watching as Thomas handled the situation. You're right, Isabella. I loved you once, Thomas said, his tone steady. But that love died the moment you chose your ego over us. Olivia is everything you never appreciated, kind, genuine, and supportive. So let me make this clear, there is no us anymore. Isabella's face crumbled. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she dropped to her knees, grabbing Thomas's leg. Please, don't do this. Don't marry her. I'll change, I'll be what you need me to be. Thomas gently stepped back. I'm sorry, Isabella. You should let this go. He nodded to the security guards, who escorted a sobbing Isabella out of the venue. The tension in the room eased as Thomas turned to Olivia and took her hands. Nothing and no one will ever come between us, he said softly, his words melting away her fears. The rest of the ceremony went smoothly, and when Thomas and Olivia were declared husband and wife, applause and cheers erupted from the crowd. As they shared their first kiss as a married couple, Olivia felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. As the reception wound down, Thomas's father pulled Olivia aside. I'm proud of you, my dear, he said warmly. You've made my son happier than I've ever seen him. Olivia smiled, her heart swelling. Thank you. I'll do my best to keep making him happy. The wedding was a grand celebration of love, resilience, and second chances. Despite the chaos caused by Isabella, Thomas and Olivia proved that nothing could shake the bond they had built. Together, they were ready to face whatever challenges life had in store. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Thomas and Olivia's mansion, casting a golden glow over the spacious living room where the couple sat sipping coffee. It had been 2 weeks since their wedding, and life was finally settling into a quiet rhythm. As Olivia glanced at the calendar, she realized it was Friday, the day Thomas's parents had invited them over for their weekly family gathering. These visits had become a cherished tradition, especially for Olivia, who had grown close to Thomas's father, Edward. Are you ready to face your parents? Olivia asked, a teasing smile tugging at her lips. Thomas chuckled as he adjusted the cuffs of his shirt. My mom will probably ask us about grandchildren again, and my dad will want to talk business. So, no, I'm not ready. But I'm glad you are. Olivia laughed, but there was a soft blush on her cheeks. The topic of children had come up more than once during these visits, and while she wasn't sure if she was ready, she couldn't deny the warmth she felt at the idea of starting a family with Thomas someday. Later that afternoon, the couple arrived at Edward and Margaret's grand estate. The atmosphere was lively, with staff bustling about and the scent of freshly baked pastries filling the air. Edward greeted them at the door with a beaming smile, pulling Thomas into a quick hug before turning to Olivia. Olivia, you look radiant as always, Edward said warmly. Thank you, Edward, she replied, feeling the familiar comfort of his fatherly presence. Margaret appeared moments later, her expression more reserved but polite. You're on time for once, she remarked, a small smirk playing on her lips. It's Olivia's influence, Thomas said with a grin. She keeps me in line. The group moved to the dining room, where an elaborate spread had been prepared. As they enjoyed the meal, Edward leaned forward, his tone becoming more serious. Thomas, there's something I need to discuss with you, he began, glancing briefly at Olivia. Thomas set down his fork. What's on your mind, Dad? Edward clasped his hands together. I've been thinking about the company's future. For years, I've waited for the right moment to pass the torch. Now that you're married to a woman who brings balance and wisdom to your life, I feel confident that it's time. Thomas blinked in surprise, his expression shifting from confusion to realization. Are you saying? Edward smiled. Yes, son. I want to make you the CEO. We'll host a formal party to announce the transition next week. It's time for the company to be in your hands. Thomas glanced at Olivia, who gave him an encouraging nod. Thank you, Dad. I won't let you down, he said, his voice steady with determination. Of course, there's one thing we'll need to ensure, Edward added, his eyes glinting with amusement. Make sure your security is tight. We can't have any unexpected guests like the last time. The room burst into laughter as the memory of Isabella's dramatic interruption at the wedding came to mind. Olivia rolled her eyes but smiled. I think we've seen the last of her. At least, I hope so. In the days leading up to the party, the mansion was a whirlwind of activity. Olivia worked tirelessly to support Thomas, helping him rehearse his speech and reviewing the guest list to avoid any potential surprises. I still can't believe this is happening, Thomas admitted one night as they sat in the study. Taking over the company feels surreal. You've earned it, Thomas, Olivia said, her tone soft but firm. You've worked hard for this, and your father sees that. I do too. He leaned over, kissing her forehead. I wouldn't be here without you. You've changed my life, Olivia, and I'll never stop being grateful for you. The day of the party arrived, and the venue was filled with some of the city's most influential figures. Thomas and Olivia entered the grand hall hand in hand, their presence commanding attention as cameras flashed and heads turned. As Edward took the stage to give his speech, Olivia couldn't help but feel a swell of pride for Thomas. This was his moment, the culmination of years of dedication and hard work. Edward's voice boomed through the room. It gives me great joy to pass the reins of this company to my son, Thomas. He has shown resilience, intelligence, and a drive that makes me confident in his ability to lead us into the future. Thunderous applause erupted as Thomas joined his father on stage. Taking the microphone, he glanced out at the crowd before turning to Olivia, who stood at the side of the stage. I need to take a moment to thank the person who has been my anchor through it all, my wife, Olivia, Thomas said, his voice filled with emotion. The crowd fell silent as he gestured for Olivia to join him. Her cheeks flushed, but she stepped forward, her hand trembling slightly in his. Olivia, Thomas continued, his voice steady, you've taught me what it means to truly live, love, and believe in myself. I wouldn't be the man I am today without you. Thank you for standing by me through everything." Before she could respond, Thomas kissed her, and the room erupted into cheers and applause. Later that evening, as the party wound down, Olivia and Thomas found a quiet corner to reflect on the night. "You're officially a CEO," Olivia teased, resting her head on his shoulder. "And you're officially married to one," Thomas replied with a grin. They both laughed, the weight of the day's events replaced by a sense of peace. "I can't wait to see what the future holds," Olivia said softly, her fingers lacing with his. "Whatever it is," Thomas replied, his voice filled with certainty, "we'll face it together." That night, as the couple prepared to leave the venue, a staff member approached them with a note. "This was left at the front desk for you," the man said, handing the envelope to Thomas. Thomas opened it cautiously, frowning as he read the words inside. "Congratulations on your success. But beware, some shadows from the past aren't so easily left behind." Olivia noticed the tension in his face. "What does it say?" Thomas hesitated before showing her the note. Her brow furrowed as she read it. "Do you think it's from Isabella?" "Maybe," Thomas said, slipping the note into his pocket. "But I'm not going to let it ruin this moment. We've come too far to let anyone disrupt our lives again." Though they tried to brush it off, the mysterious note lingered in their minds, casting a subtle shadow over what should have been the happiest day of their lives. It had been a year since Thomas and Olivia's world had transformed, and their love had only grown stronger. Life in the Carter mansion was far from boring. With Thomas settling into his role as CEO, Olivia supported him, balancing her design work and their personal lives. Together, they dreamed of building a family, and soon, their dream became reality. "Twins," Olivia said with a nervous laugh, clutching the sonogram photo in her hand. "Can you believe it?" Thomas stood beside her, his expression a mix of awe and excitement. "Two babies," he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's double the diapers, double the crying, and double the love," Olivia interrupted, smiling at him. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "I can't believe this, Olivia. Our life already felt perfect, and now we're going to be parents." The months passed quickly, and the anticipation of the twins' arrival brought even more joy to their lives. Thomas's father, Edward, and mother, Margaret, frequently visited to offer advice. While Edward was overjoyed, Margaret remained cautious, her sharp gaze always evaluating Olivia. One afternoon, as they all sat in the mansion's garden enjoying tea, Margaret broke her silence. "Are you ready for this, Olivia? Twins aren't easy. They'll require every ounce of energy and patience you have." Olivia met her mother-in-law's challenging tone with a calm smile. "I know it won't be easy, Margaret. But with Thomas by my side, I'm ready for whatever comes our way." Edward chuckled, patting Margaret's hand. "Leave her be, dear. Olivia has proven time and again she's more than capable. Haven't you noticed how happy she's made Thomas?" Margaret pursed her lips but didn't respond. Later that evening, Thomas approached Olivia as she stood by the nursery, arranging the tiny clothes she had bought for the twins. "Don't let my mom get to you," he said, leaning against the doorway. "She doesn't get to me," Olivia replied, glancing over her shoulder. "I think she just needs time to trust me." Thomas crossed the room and took her hands in his. "She'll come around. And even if she doesn't, it doesn't matter. What matters is us, and these little ones." When the twins finally arrived, Thomas and Olivia were overwhelmed with joy and love. The boy and girl quickly filled their home with the sound of tiny cries and the pitter-patter of feet. They named them James and Amelia. One afternoon, Olivia sat in the nursery, rocking Amelia to sleep while James dozed in the crib. Thomas entered the room quietly, watching her with a soft smile. "I don't think I've ever loved anyone the way I love you right now," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Olivia laughed lightly, careful not to wake the baby. That's only because I'm covered in spit up and haven't slept in 2 days. Thomas knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. No, it's because you've given me everything I never knew I needed, a family, a home, and a reason to be better every day. Tears glistened in her eyes. I feel the same way, Thomas. Every single day. One crisp morning, as Thomas sat in his study reviewing company reports, the doorbell rang. He barely noticed until one of the staff knocked on his door. Sir, the butler said hesitantly, there's someone at the door asking to see you. Thomas frowned, closing his laptop. Who is it? She says her name is Isabella, the butler replied carefully. Thomas froze. It had been over a year since Isabella's dramatic outburst at their wedding. He thought she had finally moved on. With a mix of curiosity and caution, he made his way to the door. Isabella stood there, dressed simply, her once fiery demeanor replaced with a quieter, more subdued air. She held a small bouquet of white flowers in her hand. Thomas, she said softly, her eyes scanning his face. I know I'm the last person you expected, or wanted, to see. But please, hear me out. Thomas crossed his arms, his expression guarded. You have 2 minutes. She nodded, taking a deep breath. I came to apologize for everything. For the wedding, the drama, the selfishness, all of it. I was in a bad place back then, but I've changed. She hesitated, then added, I'm married now. To someone who truly loves me for who I am, not what I want to be. And I realize how wrong I was to try and ruin what you and Olivia have. Thomas raised an eyebrow, unsure of how to respond. Congratulations on your marriage. But why are you here? I wanted to make peace, Isabella said, holding out the bouquet. These are for Olivia. I just wanted to tell her, you've always been hers, not mine. Thomas studied her for a moment before stepping aside. Wait here, he said, walking into the living room. He found Olivia there, playing with James and Amelia on the rug. Liv, he said gently, someone's here to see you. Her brow furrowed in confusion, but when she saw Isabella standing nervously in the doorway, her eyes widened. Olivia, Isabella began, stepping forward, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need to say this to you face to face. I'm sorry for everything I put you through. You never deserved any of it. Olivia stood, her gaze shifting between Isabella and Thomas. Why now? She asked cautiously. Because I finally found someone who loves me, and I understand what I tried to take from you. You didn't deserve that pain, Isabella said sincerely. She offered the flowers. These are for you, as a symbol of starting fresh. Olivia hesitated before taking the bouquet. Thank you, Isabella. I hope you found the happiness you were looking for. Isabella smiled faintly. I have. Take care of yourself, and your beautiful family. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Thomas and Olivia standing in thoughtful silence. That evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Olivia broke the quiet. Do you think she meant what she said? I think so, Thomas replied. But honestly, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that she's not part of our lives anymore. Olivia nodded, leaning her head on his shoulder. I just want us to focus on the future, on our family. And we will, Thomas said, kissing her forehead. Together, nothing can break us. Over the years, Thomas and Olivia raised their twins with love and laughter, supported by their families. Edward continued to play the role of a doting grandfather, while Margaret, over time, softened toward Olivia, finally recognizing her strength and devotion. Though life brought its share of challenges, Thomas and Olivia always faced them hand in hand, proving that love, resilience, and trust were the true keys to happiness. Moral lesson: true happiness comes not from wealth or status but from the love and family we build through honesty, perseverance, and kindness.